You couldn't spend a better 2 hours than that. But if that was the only 2 hours you worked in the week, that's what you want to do.
I mean, well, I used to price right back at the start. I'd price something and I'd go, oh, that's a bit expensive, and I'd knock a bit off, you know? Don't know why I used to do it, but I did.
Yeah, like without the wives we have, like we definitely wouldn't be the business owners that we are. We probably don't tell them enough, but hopefully they'll listen to this and hear me talking them up.
You could have some jobs going really well, and then they're hiding the jobs that are actually losing money, and you're just doing them over and over, you know?
Currently just trying to see how much annual leave I can take before I get fired.
On today's episode, I interviewed Tim Davies and Dylan Cassidy, who are members of the $1 Million Tradie program and have built a super successful business. Now, during their time with us, they've grown their revenue by more than 3 times and their profits significantly. They've built an impressive team and created a high productive work culture. And they've built the business in a way that allows them to now take some time off for fun and some vacations. Tune in as Tim and Dylan talk through how they did it. So they say success leaves clues, and on today's episode of the Profitable Tradie podcast, I interview the dynamic duo, Tim and Dylan from Cassidy Davies Electrical. Now, Tim and Dylan, awesome to be hanging out today, guys. Welcome to the studio. How you doing?
Good, mate. Thanks for having us.
And obviously you're pretty happy to be here as well, Dylan?
I might not show up, but I'm happy.
Right, that's right. It's a big smile there. So, team, I actually went back and looked at your the notes that I think Phil did your initial game plan session when you joined the $1 Million Tradie program, which is was about 3 years ago, actually. And I went back through the notes that he wrote down, which is really interesting. And I thought I might just read some of them to you because it's actually quite cool to look back. It was sort of March 2020, and at that time you guys were hitting around 120K in revenue, in monthly revenue, and your margins were pretty tight. I think sort of 20-25%. Your team was, had you two. I think you had a couple of Sparkies, 3 apprentices, and a part-time person in the office. And the notes sort of said you were both on the tools, pretty much full on. And some of the things that Phil jotted down, he said nice things, of course. And he said you guys, probably didn't understand your numbers that well and what was actually happening financially. And you had very few systems and not a lot of time for yourselves, and the business was really heavily reliant on you two. And yet, I don't think you even had any job software at that stage.
No, we did. It was a diary.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it was.
I've still got it. It's on my desk. It's a bit of a relic.
That's right. You've got it sort of mounted for what is it? For posterity? I don't know. That's a big word, whatever that means, but I've heard it once. When we look back on that, obviously you've come a long way, which is amazing. So what I'd love to do, just to kick off, can you talk us through why it was important for you to actually make some changes at that time?
Firstly, it's pretty nice of what Phil said there in the notes. Still remember that day, actually, sitting in, it was like a couple of days before that big lockdown.
Right, back in COVID days.
Picked up the balls to ring in, and Phil rang us. We're working massive hours, like, 10, 12 hours, and then that's Monday to Saturday, and then we'd either meet at Tim's house and do paperwork and stuff on the Sunday or, nights. That wouldn't have been able to continue. Like, that wasn't sustainable. Like, we'd done it at a previous job a lot, so we were pretty good at the big hours and that, and we enjoyed it, but there's no way that was sustainable.
Yeah, we were making all right money, but we were well and truly overworked and underpaid probably for the hours we were doing.
Yeah, I know it was pretty full on, and I mean that's a pretty common story I think for people in business. So, what sort of impact was that having on you as people? For you, for family, stress, time, all that sort of stuff.
I'm always stressed, so those times were super stressful. Like there were a few times there that were a bit too stressful. Yeah, got through them. Both our wives are pretty understanding people, eh?
Yeah, they understood. I think they knew what we were working towards, but we couldn't sustain that forever. Like we were probably working our way towards a successful business, but single. So that was probably the main why as to getting some help and making some changes. Both been following the PT Facebook page for a while, and Dylan sort of pushed us towards it, and then we finally booked in that call, and I don't know, the rest is history, I guess.
Yeah. So I think you're right. Choosing your wife or your significant other, if you've got one who's going to support you, is super helpful in business, and that's not always the case, unfortunately. I think I've heard it said your biggest wealth creation decision is who you choose as your life partner. So obviously you guys did pretty good there, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, without the wives we have, like, we definitely wouldn't be the business owners that we are. Like, they're definitely crucial to. We probably don't tell them enough, but they definitely are. Hopefully they'll listen to this and hear me talking them up.
Yeah, maybe you should actually tell them like yourself. Like I don't know.
I've got better.
Yeah, I hear you, mate. I think we all learn with that as we go along. I think
that's a whole new learning, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So what I'd love to do is just fast forward to now. So 3 years ago to now, can you tell us about what the business looks like now? What are the changes that you've made? Where are we sitting now?
Revenue sort of averages around that 350. We've had a couple up there, high 400s. We haven't cracked a 500, but
we're nearly there.
I don't think that's too far away. Yeah,
this year.
Yeah, the way things are tracking, probably this year. At the moment, we've got 20. There's 23 of us. That's made up of me and Tim. I've got an office manager, service coordinator, estimator, junior estimator, two ops managers. So one does like the commercial stuff, one does the residential and servicing stuff. 7 tradies and 8 apprentices.
Probably our roles as Dylan works as the general manager, and I'm currently just trying to see how much annual leave I can take before I get fired. Quite a lot, as it turns out. No.
Yeah, Tim's like the chief comedian.
Yeah, actually that might be a good job title. I do my role is business development manager, and a big part of that's culture within the business, just implementing and keeping that culture going, just making sure everyone's happy and things are running smoothly, and creating systems and processes around that as well.
Yeah, killer. And in terms of like financials and stuff, so you've obviously grown revenue. How are things different now in terms of how you track the financials, and also what impact and shift have you been able to make in the gross margins that you're able to achieve?
When we started, first few years we didn't track anything. It just, if there was money in the account, there was money in the account. If there wasn't, we probably didn't even know why. Now everything's tracked. Like, we've got pretty good systems around tracking all of that. GP was, I think we worked out that GP was sitting around that 20-25% back at the start there, but sits around 33. That can depend on how much commercial stuff's going on at the time. That definitely changes those margins. Like, more servicing work, those can get up there.
Like, the thing about growing a great business is actually most of this stuff is not. It takes a bit of learning, right? It's relatively simple. It's not necessarily easy to do sometimes, or a lot of the time, but it's about doing some simple things well.
100%.
Let's dig into that. That'll be really juicy.
So we got a really good job management software, which helps with the back costing, keeps everything really clear and visible, and our ops managers have to check every job before it's invoiced. Have to check the margins are right. They have targets. So if it doesn't meet a target margin and it gets invoiced, that goes into a spreadsheet, which is then discussed at our weekly meeting, and we sort of discuss what went wrong, how we can stop that from ever happening again, I guess. Try and learn from the things that do go wrong, because stuff does go wrong. So
that's probably the biggest bit there, is learning. Like, jobs don't go well all the time, but if you know why, and then you can fix that on the next job, it still hurts financially, but it doesn't matter as much because you've learned something. If you're just not making money on jobs and then moving on to the next one and not learning anything, you're kind of wasting your time, eh?
Yeah, and to me, that's the thing we see a lot of, and maybe you experienced this in the past, is how often are we busy doing work, and our sort of focus is to get the job finished, keep the client happy, get the project wrapped up, and we don't really think about how much money it's made, and we can actually go 4, 5, 6, 10 projects, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the track, still doing the same projects and not really knowing if they're actually making any money or whether they could make more money.
You could have some jobs going really well, and then they're hiding the jobs that are actually losing money, and you're just doing them over and over, So if you're not checking, you don't know, and you keep doing those jobs, and you're not going to fix it.
Easy to do when you're 10 hours on the tools and trying to invoice and quote and do all this stuff at night, and you might back cost a job and go, oh, that didn't go so good, but then you don't look into why, and you just carry on. And
yeah, the cycle repeat. I think what you said there, Dylan, is super important. That even if you measure your average gross margin over a month, it might look okay, but if it's 33% or if it's 38% or 40 or whatever it is, there'll be a bunch of jobs that are actually significantly below that.
Yeah.
And even if all you do is fix up the jobs that basically turn into dog turds, if you fix them up, that's going to have a massive impact on your profitability.
Yeah.
Because you'll stop doing work for nothing, and that'll automatically lift the overall thing. So I think what you said about drilling down into individual jobs is massive.
Yeah, we'll look at it like a $300 job. Like if that doesn't hit a target, that is still talked about.
Yeah. So what I'd love to do is talk about targets, because I think targets are massively important. And if you don't have a target when you're pricing work, then how do you know where it should be? So can you unpack what you do in terms of setting targets and how that helps you, with the profitability?
A while back, we discussed what target we want for servicing, renovations, new house, commercial, just all the different ranges, and discussed what I think is a bit of a discussion in PT. All the other superstars in there, a lot of them have done all this stuff before, so they've just worked out these numbers. Then those numbers are stuck on the wall next to my estimator. So if he ever prices a job and he's unsure and sort of comes to me and goes, "What do you think here?" I can pretty much say, "What does it say on the wall, mate?" Like, that's your answer, really.
SimPro allows you to, like, your job management software should allow you to look at your quote, and then it'll tell you at the bottom if it goes to plan, that's the gross margin it'll make. So it's really really simple. Like doing it how we used to on a bit of paper back in the day, like very, very hard and labour intensive where you're almost back costing the job before the job starts.
Perfect. Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? Because the challenge when you're busy is you just price work to get it done and get the price out. And effectively, a lot of people just price work to get it done and to see if they can win the job. And there's quite a difference when you start having a target gross margin for each type of work, so that rather than just pricing it for the sake of it and seeing if you get the job, hoping you get the job, you're pricing it to make profit.
Yeah.
Because if you don't price profit in at the start of the job, it's really hard to bring it in at the end. I know in the squads we've kicked each other's asses a few times about tweaking the gross margin, and something that I've found incredibly powerful, and I'm sure you'll agree, is that you can actually just change the targets that you want to hit, and that actually starts to have the effect of increasing your margins as well, just because you are aiming at a higher mark, which, I don't know, it buzzes me out.
Psychology.
That it actually works. It's this weird psychology, right? Yeah. But it actually works.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think if you're listening and you're thinking about where should I price stuff, we'll figure out where you are now and just add a couple of percentage points to your gross margin. Very few people are going to say no to that. In fact, it's generally not an issue at all.
Yeah. No, I mean, when we've raised our labour rates in the past, like, you just do it, eh? Like, I mean, the first time Phil got us to do it, we sort of sat in Tim's office there, and we just sort of like, let's draft an email and we'll send it to everyone, and we sort of hummed and hawed, and I think we just ended up sending it, and no one ever said anything. Like, we thought it was a big thing, but it wasn't. Yeah, it's often the price we're charging is a bigger thing in our head than it is in our in our customers, which is kind of weird. It's a hard thing to get your head around.
Yeah, right? They're using you or using us because they like us and we do a good job and all those other things, not because we charge $5 more or $10 more less than someone else.
100%. Hey, so one thing I'd love to just unpack is you've had estimators. You've got an estimator and a junior estimator now, and I know for a lot of people who maybe don't have estimators or are thinking about doing that, they're like, well, how could anyone ever price the work? So that's one thing. So how did you get over that hurdle? Like, they don't know the business like me, and they don't know the clients, and what if they mess it up? Yeah, that was a big hurdle. The bigger hurdle in that situation was getting your head around paying someone to do the pricing when we already did the pricing. But
we did the pricing at night time, so we're like, it's not a full-time job. It's only 2 hours a day. He'll listen to this and be like, it's like a 20-hour day and I can't keep up.
Yeah, he'll come back for a pay rise now, won't he?
I think I'd been doing it for long enough that I've got a pretty good system. The estimator we've got, he's a C on the disc, so he wants everything to be right and perfect, and he knows he's a Sparky, so he was a Sparky. So the system I sort of had is made it easy enough for him to sort of jump in and do it, I guess. I mean, that's probably not a great way to explain that.
System helps for sure.
Well,
yeah. I think the bigger hurdle was what you spoke, like what we said there, is is there enough pricing to take on an estimator to do, because we were doing it sort of part time and keeping up, but as we know, like, we took them on and it just exploded basically, and then you get more price. It's a capacity thing, isn't it? Like, it frees up our capacity to go and like find more work and nurture clients that we have or we're trying to get, and then you get more pricing in, and then all of a sudden he can't keep up, and now there's a junior. And
isn't that interesting?
I know, crazy that.
But it took us, like, we should have done it way earlier than we did, because of that thought. But man, you put you create that vacuum, and holy heck,
yeah, it comes through.
It just comes.
What would you say to other business owners who are actually struggling, financially at the moment? What's the best place for them to start with their numbers?
Back costing.
Learn how to back cost, I think, because I never even knew what back costing was. Before I was taught, I wouldn't have known how to do it. So learn that, and then not just learn how to do it on every job.
Yeah.
And then, like I said earlier, like, learn why, if something didn't go wrong, learn why, or if something went really well, why, and let's target that.
Yeah, do more of that
type of work, or that, whatever. Yeah, let's do more of that stuff. If this is, talking to newer people in business, I think you sort of start out and you don't really know what you're worth and charge what you're worth. I think, we were guilty of it.
Everyone is, like, you just don't know, but yeah, that's massive for everyone is.
I used to price right back at the start. I'd price something and I'd go, oh, that's a bit expensive, and I'd knock a bit off, I don't know. Used to do it. Don't know why I used to do it, but I did.
Well, I think that's a pretty common thing. It's like you put the price together and then you talk yourself down 4 times before you send the email. And actually, I'm sure you've found it as well, but I've noticed a lot is when you get an estimator, that problem goes away as well, because they just price to the numbers that you tell them, to a target, and your margins actually go up because they're not being a sissy about pricing.
Yeah, well, they don't know. They don't have that emotion.
Yeah, that emotional kind of attachment to that outcome. So that's another upside of having an estimator doing the pricing as well. Yeah, back costing, unbelievably important. I think that's great advice. I'd also like to talk about the gains in revenue that you've made, because you've done great, like 3x your revenue and still climbing, which is awesome. So, what do you think have been the key drivers of that revenue growth from where you guys sit?
Definitely putting the managers in place. So, like, getting the estimator initially, which then freed us up to do other stuff. Then the next one was the office manager, which freed up more time. Both of those two were probably the biggest keys to growth for us over the years. Like, both of them just were unbelievable what they did. And then later on, it was the ops managers. Those two helped us massively, Tim.
Oh yeah, huge, yeah. And it's that capacity, it's the capacity thing. So, like, having an estimator doesn't necessarily smash the business, but that means that we're not doing the estimating, so we've got time, and we to go, like, nurture clients, find new clients, hire more staff, create systems, like all those other things that then lead to the revenue growth.
Some people listening will be kind of surprised because we haven't mentioned sales and marketing as the key things for growing revenue. And I actually think you're 100% right. They're actually not the biggest problems for most businesses. The biggest problem is, as you said, Tim, a lack of capacity, which is solved by getting the right organization structure, the right people in the business, which gives you the room to grow. So I think that's amazing. But it's kind of counterintuitive, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Especially when you may or may not be making a huge amount of money, thinking about putting someone on and paying them a salary. You're like, where's that money going to come from? But if you fix all those things we've talked about, your GP goes up and you're making more money and your revenue goes up, and it just sort of snowball effect, But that snowball wouldn't even start rolling unless you hire the estimator or the office manager or whatever your roadblock at the time might be.
Yeah, that's massive. So there's a big mindset challenge here, right? Which is, I think you've alluded to it. It's getting through that, hey, I'm going to have to invest some money and probably some training time as well to get some extra help. And frankly, that's where most businesses make the mistake. They don't do it because they're scared of doing it. It's stressful. It's too hard. They don't know what they're doing, or it's going to cost too much money, or insert whatever reason here. So how did you actually get through that? Because I know it's been a challenge. It is for all of us.
PT was a massive help, and probably more than PT, the PT community and everyone inside it that's done it before, and you can sort of use them as a, it worked for them, so why wouldn't it work for us? So that was pretty huge.
It even took PT a long time to convince us to get an office manager, eh?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, we tried really hard.
They banged on that door for a long time, eh?
Yeah. I think it's one of those things like you think that you do it so well and no one else could do it as good as you, but I can tell you right now that every single person that we've hired to do ops, office work, estimating, any of these things,
they are all better than us.
Way better.
Our ops manager just went away for 3 weeks a couple of weeks ago, and God, I missed him. I did.
I'm just laughing because I've had the same experience in our business. I don't even know how to do half the jobs anymore. I couldn't do them. I wouldn't have a clue. And what you said there, the peer group is massive, and I think a big challenge for a lot of us in businesses, we actually don't believe some things are possible because we've actually never really seen them.
Yeah.
What you guys have found, I know in our boardroom group, where you surround yourself with people who are further down the road, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's not this big scary thing. This is actually something who actually breathes oxygen and whose bum point south's done. So
yeah, you talk to
maybe I can do it too.
New squad with old Matt in there, like you see what he does and what he's done. You're like, oh well, I've gone to here, but there's this whole another level.
Yeah, there's always another level.
Yeah,
which is cool. Yeah. And that's not to stress you out either. It's more for encouragement and inspiration. So, guys, those are massive learnings. And if you are listening, I reckon capacity is the biggest bottleneck to business growth. So you've got to build some capacity in your business because growth actually takes time and effort. And I know I've probably said it before, but, if you've got a glass that's full of water, you can pour more water on it. You're never going to keep more water. It just flows over the side. So you've got to get a bigger glass, which is more people and better systems, which allows you to grow. So, hats off to you guys for actually doing the hard work mentally to make that happen, even if we had to kick your ass a bit, which is all good.
Yeah. Something you just said there just made me think of something, Tony, about like creating the systems or like building like a job description before hiring someone. And we had the same thing. We were like, oh, we need to plan out what this person's going to do and all this stuff, but which was completely backwards. We needed to hire them so that they could help plan out how they were going to do it because they know how to do it better than we did. If you're working 10 hours a day and then doing office work at night, you're never going to have time and we didn't, to plan out what your office manager's going to do when they start. Like you have to hire them so you've got capacity to do that.
Yeah, that's gold. I mean, how often are people, we see it in the membership, right? They're like, oh, well, should I put all the systems together so when they come on board, they can do the job? Well, just let them do the systems.
Yeah.
That's part of their job, which is killer.
Yeah.
I love that. That's super insightful. Let's look at culture. And company culture, because I think you guys have done some cool stuff here. And culture is massive. Like culture is those, the unwritten rules about how things are done. And if you have a rubbish culture, people, your team just doesn't perform. You have a great culture, they're really productive and they like coming to work. So it's massively important. I think it's like absolutely critical to success. So what I'd love to dig into is why have you actually focused on culture so much?
I love it. It's my jam, like making people happy, working with people. But I think from PT, where I don't know who's saying it actually is, but culture eats strategy for breakfast. That was big, and we had a good culture before, but we probably wouldn't be able to articulate why, and we probably thought it was having barbecues and beers and being good buggers. But it's way deeper than that, and having everyone happy and all on the same boat, all rowing in the same direction, so to speak, is massive. Like that's where the gold is. Like if you can create that, if you work on that, then the money comes. But if you focus all your time and effort and everything on the bottom line and the dollars, like your culture could potentially struggle, and that's when you run into problems with team and people leaving and not being able to hire staff because you get a bad reputation for being a prick. All those things. You
look like you're ready to jump in there, Dylan, with some wise words, mate.
I was going to say we managed to hire people in terms of pricks, though. I think we had a good culture before, but it wasn't really by design. It was just, I think we're just good buggers, I guess. And then one of the boot camps, quite recent actually, that it really got spoken about, and I don't know, we spent a lot more time on culture lately.
Yeah.
Because like Tim said, like everyone's happy and everyone's going in the same direction. Like shit just happens. You're not dealing with issues and crap and all that stuff that you hate as a business owner.
I think something you mentioned there, Tim, which always buzzes me out, is that culture is more than beers and barbecues.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, it's important to have a good social time, and they think, if they put a pizza on and some beers or some barbecues or whatever on a Friday afternoon, then that's culture, and everyone's sort of tickety-boo. And it definitely helps, but it's much more than that, isn't it?
Oh, massively more than that. Like, that stuff's like hugely important, and we do that stuff, and I think all the guys appreciate that. But if that's all you do, that's not a good company culture. If your systems suck and you never listen to anyone's opinions, and you don't have regular check-ins and all these other things, it's not enough.
Well, I like to think of the beers and barbecues are like the cherry on top.
Yeah.
If you've got everything else right, you put that on the top, it's going to be magic.
That's what it is, yeah.
But if you've just got that, it's probably not going to cut the mustard. So what have you guys, what specifically have you implemented or done to actually help build the culture? What are the sort of boots on the ground stuff that you do that you think's really helped?
We've dialed down into our core company values, got our rules of the game, done a couple of alignment days now. We do really regular 20-minute catch-ups, and we've like fun days, activities, social club, that sort of stuff. Rules of the game, we got the boys and the girls to get together. They made them, so they're their rules, so they're more likely to live by them.
Those rules are things like turning up on time, having a clean uniform.
10 commandments.
10 commandments, basically, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're pretty cool, the rules of the game, because I know when we talk about rules, some people freak out and like, oh, you're telling them what to do and yada, yada, yada. But it's a bit like if you play a game of sport and there's no rules, it's anarchy.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know, if you're listening, if you've ever played Bull Rush. Well, I'm old enough that, you're able actually to play Bull Rush and tackle people, and it was like just full-on war every school lunchtime. No rules. You don't want your business to be like that, so the rules actually tell people how we're going to play the game in our business. One thing I'd love to dig into, Dylan, is you talked about the 20s. So can you just explain, what the 20s are, what the purpose of them are, and I guess how you find them helpful?
So for a long time there, Tim did all of these. It's a 20-minute catch-up, which normally with Tim it blows out to be more like an hour, but talk about like wins, like the wins they've had recently, goals that they're working towards or want to work towards, challenges that they're having. We review their KPIs in this time. Another time here where we thought PT didn't have it right, and we thought Tim should do it because he's the boss and wants to keep in touch with everyone. But now we've changed it so the managers do it to their direct reports, and it works way better. Should have listened at the start, but anyway.
Well, I don't like to say, mate.
But like now it's it's a good way where the managers get to know the guys that are under them. They come in here in the morning, and the manager grabs my credit card and goes over to the road, and they just have a coffee and write out some goals and talk about how everything's going. Like it's a good way if there's any issues that anyone's having. It's quite just a wee chat, so they sort of open up about things like that, and stuff doesn't fester. And I think the guys really enjoy it. I enjoy doing my ones. Yeah,
how does that help build the culture?
The people, they feel like they're valued and listened to, and like we give a shit. The goals that my direct reports have, I like try and help them with them, or see if there's anything we can do to help them achieve these goals. I don't know, I guess it just makes them feel more like a team, a family.
It shows them that because we do care and genuinely care, but it's a good way of actually showing that and telling someone that you care about them, yeah, all good, but actually showing them in a practical step of doing this catch up and helping them with their goals and actually helping them set goals as well is huge, I think.
Yeah. And how often do you run them?
Everyone has one a fortnight. On the surface, it seems like it's like a lot of time and a lot of effort. It's 20 minutes, and each guy's probably got 6 or 7 20s to do. So what's the maths on that? A couple of hours, like every 2 weeks. Like you couldn't spend a better 2 hours than that. Like that, if that was the only 2 hours you worked in the week, that's what you want to do. Like checking in on your staff and making sure they're happy and got what they need and know where they're going is like, yeah, it's huge.
And that's the hard work of culture. It's actually, if you're really proactive with your team and you walk alongside them and set the direction and give them something to aim for, then you don't have all the problems of people leaving and getting dissatisfied or mucking stuff up all the time. It's not perfect. Obviously, things go wrong from time to time, but in general, you don't have all the problems down the track because you put the work in up front.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah, like, and it doesn't mean that your business doesn't have problems and your staff don't have issues, but it means that you know about those issues immediately and put action steps in place to fix them rather than letting them fester for 6 months and wondering why
Half your team
10 guys
leaves. Yep.
just leave all of a sudden. You're like, oh, what happened? And
So, okay, cool. Great work on the culture too, because it's massive. And if you're listening, culture is like it eats strategy for breakfast. I think Keith Cunningham said that. I think.
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Which is a great book, The Road Less Stupid. I think that's the book, isn't it? Yes. So if you want a good read, okay, let's talk about the fact that you've got a bunch of managers now as you've grown. So the challenge, I guess, that we find, and I'm sure you felt it, and the fear, I guess, is when you're employing managers that you might actually lose control of the business and you won't actually know what's happening in your business. So I guess first thing, did you feel like that?
It's a tough one. I think letting go of control.
that was hard.
What have you done to actually ensure that your management team is doing a great job and that the work out in the field and the pricing and all that sort of stuff is actually being done well?
The culture is a big part of that, is of knowing you can trust them. Like they know what we want, and everyone knows what each other wants.
They live by our rules and our core values as well. Like our core values are honesty, commitment, pride, and well-being. So that like they live by them. You do trust them, right? We sat down a while back and got like really clear job descriptions, so they know what they are responsible for. We have a weekly management meeting where each manager, they'll record their key metrics into this spreadsheet that we have. Then we all sort of get together on a Tuesday morning and each of them presents their key results to the group. And then we all discuss them, and that keeps them accountable. They have to put the results in themselves, which I think is like everyone wants to win, right? Everyone wants to achieve, and everyone wants to hit their goals. So I know that, like, I've seen one of the ops managers in the past where his target's not, he's looking on a Thursday and he's like, oh shit. Well, the estimator, he's a classic, actually. He's terrible for it, where he's on a Wednesday and he's like, oh man, I'm not going to hit target this week. And then he's, like, he gets on the hustle to make sure he does, because he doesn't want to sit there on that Tuesday meeting and go, oh, I didn't get this or this done. So that works really well.
That's killer, that system. I love that. And I think a bunch of the other guys in boardroom have picked that up, that self-accountability by actually having to put your numbers and then showing them to your peers. You don't want to let the side down.
Yeah, we've just changed that again, actually, that spreadsheet. So now each of the managers talks about a win from the week before, a learning a lesson or something that didn't go well from the week before. They talk about what their focus is for that coming week, and like a main focus, not just the estimator won't say, oh, I've got pricing, like something else, and whether they need help from someone else, like probably me, but whether they need help with something, and we discuss that there in that group, and that seems to go pretty good, eh? So.
Oh yeah, it's sort of changed. That meeting was good, and now it's great, and then out of that meeting we've actually got like an action plan of like steps of what each person is going to do themselves and what they need to help someone else with, or whatever it is. Yeah,
you're creating a great sense of teamwork amongst your management team as well, which is cool, because otherwise sometimes they're like, oh well, I'm just ops and I don't care about anything else, or I'm pricing and I don't care about anything else.
Yeah.
We've got an awesome management team, eh? Like, real good culture in that group of us. Yeah, awesome.
And
group.
I think that's a huge thing as your business grows. You got 20 or 30 guys and you get up to 40 or 50 or 60 or 100. The culture of the management team and the performance of the management team is actually what's going to grow the business.
Yeah.
They're the ones who do the heavy lifting, and our job as leaders is to actually coach and train and mentor them so that they can do a great job, which is, I think, a nice transition you guys have been making as well.
Yeah.
Let's talk about partnerships, business partnerships. So you guys are still talking to each other after a while, which is amazing. So I'd love to just dig into the partnership side of things, because I think that's really interesting. Lots of people are either in a partnership, maybe with a business partner, or maybe they're in business with their husband or wife or significant other, and there's some similarities. You guys don't go home together at night, but
sometimes
it's kind of sometimes. Yep, just depending how it rolls. It's all good. So how did you guys actually get into business together?
We worked together for quite a few years at a couple of different companies. Tim went away to UK and came back and got him a job where I was at the time. He was my apprentice, by the way.
Still am.
Not the best one I ever had, but he was all right. And we just worked really well together. I think our personalities matched pretty well. And I think we'd worked for we'd both worked for some really, really good companies and some not so good companies. We sort of thought, oh, let's give it a crack, and we'll sort of model it off those good companies that we had worked for.
Try and create something that's like an awesome company, not just another Sparky company. Like we wanted to do it differently and sort of model that on the good companies we had worked for, and take the best bits from them and make sure the worst bits from the bad places we worked never got done here.
So what have been the challenges of working together?
Probably a challenge and a really good point for us is that I'm a real stress person, and Tim stresses me out because he's not a stress person and he's so laid back. So that stresses me out more at times, but then he can be a real calming influence as well and sort of talk me down. So I don't know if that's a challenge. That's a challenge and a blessing, I guess. Honestly, we don't really have too many challenges between us two. We're like, neither of us have an ego. We both have very similar upbringings, probably had really similar like values and beliefs,
Yeah.
Probably a real important one in partnerships that neither of us are. Like we're neither of us are like materialistic or have money as a major motivator.
What have you guys done to make it a success?
Probably the biggest change that we've done about 18 months ago, we sort of identified that we were probably doing a little bit of everything and neither of us was responsible for anything, and we're just sort of in each other's lane, and it was just a bit of a mess. So we sort of just said, like, right, we need to have one boss who's going to report to who, I guess, in a way, and worked out who was going to be responsible for what, worked out job descriptions for ourselves, and then that's when we did all the managers ones, which, sort of kept us in our own lane. We're accountable for our certain things now. So stuff wasn't falling behind and not getting done, I guess.
It was massive.
Big shifts. And this is the thing, if you are in a partnership and there's two of you, often you start off as equals, I guess. It's not that you guys aren't equals, but you almost build two businesses within one business and everyone's doing a bit of everything, which is not a very efficient way to do it. And so now you have one person who's actually the boss, the GM, who the responsibility sits with. And it doesn't make you better or higher than the other person. It's just that's your role. In fact, metaphorically higher, not physically. Anyhow, in some ways, being the GM is actually is more responsibility in a way. So it does come with a bit of a thing. But how do you negotiate that? Any stresses or frustrations with that, or you both feel really comfortable in the roles you are, and you've got each other's backs?
They suit our personalities. Like
So you're the boss because you keep interrupting, Dylan. Is that the case? Or?
I can't. Yeah. Well, I try not to. I try to let him talk. You see, I'm trying my hardest.
That's all right.
Carry on, bro.
I was just gonna say, like, we're 100% like back each other in each other's roles, like, and I think you have to. You can't, and it probably comes back to the ego. Like, you can't, if both of you want to be the general manager, like, one of you has to. We didn't have that. But, I was quite happy to go into my role because it's what like I said before, that's what I enjoy, and it suits my personality better. But someone has to step back and let the other one go forward, and you both have to agree on that and let it happen. You can't do it and then still poke your nose in and do bits and pieces of the general manager, I guess, type role. Like, you have to decide what the split's going to be and then just work on your stuff and let the other stuff. I mean, you're not going to let the business fall apart, but like, leave them to it, so to speak.
You've touched on a real secret to success to grow a substantial business. It's okay if you've got 3 or 4 people running around. You can be a bit looser in your structure, but once you get to 20, 30, if you want to grow to 50, 60, whatever, clear accountabilities, clear job descriptions mean that you know who's responsible for stuff. Otherwise, if you don't know who's responsible, no one's responsible, and stuff really falls through the cracks. So I think you've set up, a great structure to succeed from there as well. So that's cool.
Everyone has to be responsible for their own thing. That's key.
Let's talk about results. So what have the results from the business meant for you and your families?
We definitely have more family time now, and like actually being present when you are with the family rather than just giving them the little bit that's left over at the end of the day. Like we both coach Dylan's 10-year-old rugby. Like, taking that time away to actually do that is awesome. What do I do? I take my daughter swimming every other week. We're generally home at a reasonable hour now.
You are?
Well, I told you, I'm trying to see how much time I can spend away with before I get fired.
I reckon for me, like, I probably not so much him because he's not really stressed, but I think I used to get home and I'd be so wound up from the day that the little things at home would piss me off a whole lot more than they probably should have. Whereas these days I'm not so fiery or not so on edge. I'm happier when I get home, not as stressed when I get home.
like we're not saying we never took holidays before, but now we can book a holiday and go on a holiday and not spend 3 weeks before we go and 3 weeks afterwards planning it and then tidying up the mess afterwards. It's you can take a week or a couple of weeks off and you know that everyone is going to cover it.
So let's talk about mindset. What mindset changes have you had to make to achieve the success that you've had?
Like, you can't do everything forever. Like, even the best need help. Working harder doesn't always mean working longer. It's about working on the right stuff. Let go of the control and the outcome. The two biggest ones is hire earlier than you think you need to, because we've got that wrong a lot. And then culture is king. Do you want to add to that, Tim?
Killer mindset.
Nah, you nailed it. But like, I think the last point there is culture is king. That's the number one most important thing, and probably a massive reason of why we got into business was to create that cool business to work for, that family vibe, and help everyone within that along.
It's very rewarding, that too.
Oh, massively rewarding. Yeah.
Super good. Okay, I have one last question. How important was getting outside help for you guys with the business success that you've had, and what have you valued most about the help you've received?
Hugely important. Quite often think what we'd be doing at this point in our lives if we didn't.
We wouldn't be sitting here.
No, we definitely wouldn't be sitting here.
probably be in a trench digging a hole or something.
I'd have less hair. Yeah, pretty much. We could put most of what we did up to these days down to getting some coaching and getting some help. The most important thing, I did think about that earlier, and it's a hard one. I think the peer group has been really good. Ideas and you know, throw a question up, and always multiple people willing to help. Meet these people that, you know, on these boot camp. Like, I've got some good mates, like, you know, like people that I talk to outside of PT about nothing to do with PT, just good people that are, I guess, in the same situation. So you've got similar things going on, but yeah, some really cool, helpful people. And probably the biggest thing I take out of it.
The coaching as well has helped massively with business, but also like mindset outside of work and just being a better person. You know, like we're going to go do a vision day, and is it next week? And you know, with like a part of that, the plan of that day is to do some meditation. Like, if you had have said to me 6 years ago that you're going to go go to Queenstown with Dylan and do a whole day working on the vision of your business and do some meditation, I would have said you're crazy. I'll never do that. But yeah, we do stuff like that, and it's crazy how beneficial it is to how you feel.
That really makes me smile, because one of the reasons we do what we do is to help you meditate. No. But in all seriousness, one of the things that lights me up in our role as coaches is you have to become a better person to be a better business owner. So it's that's absolutely critical, and the results you get will be related to how much you grow as a person, which is kind of the little secret of coaching that you probably people don't think about, and why would you? But it is actually really critical. So that's amazing. That's so good. I think that's a great place to land this plane. Really appreciate hanging out with you guys today. You've done amazing. And I just always encourage you to look back on what you've done and realise that you've got some amazing lessons that you can share with everyone. And I appreciate you taking some time out, to actually do that today. I think that's awesome.
No worries. Thanks.
No worries.
It was actually real cool to look over all that stuff and yarn about it and see what we have done. It's pretty cool.
That's right. You've always got to focus on the gain, which is the improvements you've made, rather than the gap, because it's really easy to focus on what we've got left to do. But that can leave us a bit tired sometimes.
Definitely.
Awesome, guys. Appreciate you. Keep up the great work. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers, Tony.